Hi, welcome to this series of opinions podcast. We are three women talking about the best and worst of media. This is episode number 10, titled The First Ship Ever, and I'm Moira.
I'm Faith.
I'm KJ.
And so we're just gonna start by asking if anyone has any recommendations of media that they liked this week.
Anybody want to start? I have a couple.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So, as you guys know, I'm somebody who something will be really popular and I'll know about it, but I won't get on the bandwagon, and then years later I'll be like, hey, what's this? Then actually have the appreciation for it that it deserves and get on the bandwagon way too late. But an example of this, well, obviously Hamilton is one example, but this week I have gotten on to Dear Evan Hansen, and the soundtrack from that, specifically Requiem, I really like right now, but all the songs are great. So that's my current obsession that I've been listening to. Also Hamilton, trying to memorize the last half because I have the first half memorized. But yeah, I am so someone that I'm got to be 4 or 5 years behind everybody else.
Moira, I'm really curious. What's your favorite song from Dear Evan Hansen?
I have been listening to Sincerely Me every single day.
That's a good one.
Week.
I like that one.
Just because I'm I feel the need to tap dance every single time I listen to that song.
Yeah,
my
so
favorite is Good For You.
Ooh, that one's good.
I heard it not even in the context of the show. I think I probably had Hamilton or Heathers or something on, and it ran out, and
right.
Spotify will just keep playing stuff.
Yeah,
and I think
isn't that great?
Came on that. Yeah, Spotify's amazing. So.
Honestly, yeah. The money that I pay for Spotify Premium every month is some of the best money I've ever spent. That and TCO's Patreon.
Yeah, I
some
agree.
of the best money.
Hardcore. Every time I'm I could save money and not do these things for a couple months. I'm nope, can't do it.
No, I mean cut down on on food and utilities, but not on TCO.
I'd rather give up food than give up my Audible subscription or
exactly
or my TCO or my Spotify.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anybody else?
I mean, obviously not food entirely. We need food to survive, but
I mean, yeah, but just kind of trying to express how my priorities work. Anyways,
exactly.
Anybody else have a recommendation for this week?
Well, I think we should continue with the musical theme because I was going to recommend Heathers because I've been listening to that all week, and the music from that because it's incredible.
Which version do you listen to?
I don't even remember. Whatever's on YouTube. Because I don't have Spotify.
I like one. There's the West End one, and I like the world premiere cast recording. I don't like the West End one.
Fair enough.
It was upsetting for me the first time that I accidentally couldn't find the one that I like. It's not that they're bad. It's just that there's a couple of lyric changes, and I really like Barrett Wilbur Weed, who plays Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
I like her voice, and anyone else's voice just doesn't sound right to me.
She's not as good.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. I am still watching Chicago, which I recommended last week. I'm about to start Chicago Med.
Yay!
I've
That's
got
exciting.
maybe 5 or 6 episodes of Chicago Fire and Chicago PD each before Chicago Med starts. And then I'm also rewatching Supernatural. I've watched it kind of on and off for 6 years now, but I've never gotten all the way through. Every time I pick up where I left off, it's been so long since I watched the first time that I've gotten up to season 13, but I haven't finished season 13, and now it's ending on 15. So I'm just gonna start from the beginning. I'm gonna go all the way through. By the time I get to the end, season 15 will be done, and it'll be all in one chunk in a fairly reasonable amount of time without too many big gaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm watching. And then I went on a musical journey this morning. Which is gonna make Faith and Moira laugh because I made Faith listen to the story twice already.
Yeah, that's okay.
But, I was watching Supernatural last night, and I was watching episode out of order because sometimes I do that. And I was watching Baby, which is considered to be one of the best episodes of the series, and it features Night Moves by Bob Seger, which is an amazing song. And then I had that stuck in my head this morning, so I was listening to other Bob Seger music, and then I started listening to Fall Out Boy. I don't know how that connection happened. but it did, and I recommend just taking a little trip on Spotify. This has been an ad for Spotify. It feels like we don't get paid for it, but
we don't get paid for it.
You can listen to our podcast there. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, we like it when you use Spotify just because we're there.
yeah.
So today we're going to discuss our first ever ships and the ones that are like closest to our hearts, helped introduce us to the world of fangirling. So should be interesting.
Yeah, our first introduction to shipping. Yeah.
I was just thinking maybe off the top we could each say what we're doing, and then maybe how old we think we were when we first started to like these two people as a couple.
Absolutely.
It might be a guess in some cases. I know mine's a guess. I couldn't tell you exactly. But I'm doing Sherbert, which is Anne Shirley and Gilbert Blythe from the Anne of Green Gables franchise. And I'd say I was maybe 7, maybe younger than that, but I'd say probably around 7 is my best guess for when I first read the series.
That's amazing. That is very adorable. So I'm doing Tammy. So Amy and Ty from Heartland. I was 6 when the show came out, so I'm assuming it was right around when the show came out that
because you
I
watched
started
from the
to
beginning.
love them. Yeah, 2007.
Yeah, that's crazy to watch it right from the beginning.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Heartland, go check out episode number 7, where we discussed it at length.
At very, 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 very long length.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Episode 7 hasn't come out at the time of recording, but I'm sure editing KJ made it down to a reasonable length.
Editing KJ did not get that down to a reasonable length, but I did split it in half.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't like 8 hours long, because that was a night recording that one. But I'm doing Everlark, which is Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark from The Hunger Games.
I totally forgot that was their ship name.
I know, I had to, like, fake fangirl moment, but, like, I had to Google it, too. I'm like, Peetness? What even was it? But
no, but that was a big thing back in,
oh, yes,
2010.
Everlark versus Everthorn. I didn't look up what Gale and her
that sounds right.
ship names were, but I'll discuss that more later. But I believe I was about 10. I think that the 3rd book had just been released, and I was looking for something to read after I had read Harry Potter. And I also was, like, late to the Twilight game, which is kind of off of what I said earlier. I'm, like, always, like, late to things.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of how we roll here.
Yeah, that's kind of how we do it. We're all 65-year-old women that are, like, in 20-year-old bodies. Slash 21.
None of us discovered Hamilton before 2017.
Yeah, literally.
No.
I just discovered it when it was still released on Disney Plus, so I am mega late. But yeah, I think I was 10, and I had a pretty strong Team Edward phase when I got into Twilight, but that was after I was super.
I don't think I knew this about you.
No, it was really embarrassing.
But everybody at our age was having a phase of
one
either
or the
Hunger
other.
Games or Twilight or both, and it was like one or the other.
I managed to miss all of it.
We're going to do an episode on triangles, and I'm sure we'll talk more about those.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, who's going first?
I can go first if we want. So, I'm talking about Amy Fleming and Ty Borden from Heartland. So they meet in episode 1 when Ty is coming to stay at Amy's family ranch as a part of his probation. So the first 2 seasons are a lot of back and forth. They like each other, but they don't officially get together until the end of season 2 / beginning of season 3. They have their first kiss at the end of season 1. Which is so cute. I love that. And then he leaves, which is anger, but yeah. And so the season 2 finale / season 3 premiere are some of my favorite Amy and Ty content.
The early Amy and Ty content is so wholesome and cute. I love their beginning of their story.
So much. So in the season 2 finale is the episode when they like go up to the fishing cabin to feed the wild horses, and they like talk about their plans for the future, and Ty is like sick and hallucinating, and then he tells Amy that she's like super beautiful, which is just, I think, my favorite Amy and Ty moment. I don't know why, but
They're
I just
so
love it.
cute. Oh
They're
my
so
gosh.
adorable. And then at the end of that episode, they say I love you for the first time, which, you know, intense, okay. But then we get straight into the season 3 premiere, and they've been together, obviously, for a couple months, and it's the Miracle Girl episode, where we have all the cute scenes.
I think this was my love it moment from...
Yeah,
I think so
From
too.
episode
literally.
It was
It's
definitely
such a cute moment.
talked about, for sure. We definitely talked about it, but I'm pretty sure that was my love it.
Past KJ, girl, it was your favorite episode, not your love it. Favorite episode of all time. How do you not remember?
Just all the cute scenes from the garage and Ty riding on the horse. Love that.
Yeah.
So much. So, like, then they date for season 3, and they break up for the majority of season 4, and that was gross. And I mean, I get that
Back
they had
when
to
they
have personal
weren't-
growth.
Yeah, exactly. Back when it wasn't just common knowledge that they were going to be together forever.
Yeah, literally. So they like got back together for season 5. Not a ton of huge things happen for them in season 5. They save some stolen racehorses and do all those fun things. But in season 6, they get engaged, and most of season 6 is them just debating whether or not they're going to get engaged or why are they waiting and all that.
That was a tense time in my life.
Literally. Yeah.
I
Because
had
you guys,
a lot of emotional energy invested at that time in my life.
Yeah.
I could actually talk to you guys about it by then, and it was just so stressful, but also I got to talk to you guys about how stressful it was. So.
I feel like that
Yeah.
might have been when Faith was starting to watch. Faith,
Yeah.
like,
I
do you
think
remember
so.
when you first started watching for the first time? Like,
I don't even remember.
I feel
think-
like it was around that time, though.
I remember the first episode I ever saw on TV was the one with Georgie running back into the barn that was on fire.
That's the season.
That was
So-
in season 6, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right around there is when I got caught up. So that's exactly
Oh my
exactly when. Which it seems like it feels like I've been watching that show forever, but that wasn't.
You really have. This season coming out is what, 14?
Yeah, so I guess it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been like 7 or 8 years.
Wow. Oh my gosh!
Terrifying.
Don't say that.
Yeah, and then in season 8, they break up for most of the season again. So, like, they got that nice, like, 4-year gap, but
We
knew
talked
that
about
they
how
were
we
getting
hated
back
this
together.
in our last
Yeah.
episode.
You know
Yeah.
already how much we hate
Yeah.
this.
Yes, I have strong feelings.
But they do get married at the end of the season, which is so cute.
One of
And
the
I had to
most
rewatch
beautiful.
it today.
Absolutely, one of the most beautiful moments Heartland has ever had.
Mm-hmm. And I realized while I was watching it today that, like, they're super emphasized how, like, their friendship was super important to them and their vows.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
that
That
is
makes me happy.
goals.
Yeah.
And then season 9 is our first experience with married Amy and Ty, and like how they try and figure that out, and them moving into the loft. And then at the end of the season, Amy announces she is pregnant, and they get the cute dude ranch scenes. And then in season 10, we have them doing the long distance thing while Ty is in Mongolia, which was good, but not a lot of Ty and Amy content from there.
Yeah, I remember being afraid that Graham Wardle was gonna like leave the show because he had such limited screen time at that time.
Yeah.
Which I'm really, really glad that that didn't end up happening. But I remember not loving the long distance storyline.
I think
Yeah.
he's just one of the ones that likes to do a lot of other projects.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I forget the name of the actor that plays Peter, but he's one too. Like, that guy's an everything Canadian. Like,
Yeah.
they like to do
Yeah.
a lot of other things. So, like, sometimes they'll just be gone from the show for a while.
Yeah.
Right, which makes sense. But as far as you know, I think I just hold some animosity because I was getting so worried that they were gonna they were really gonna like kill him off or something.
I was very nervous this season with like all the new COVID restrictions with filming that he was not gonna want to come back.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't be able to do anything else. I was just watching Supernatural like an hour ago before we recorded. And Graham Wardell was in episode 3 of season 1.
Wow.
And he's like one of the very first like characters. No, it was episode 2 of season 1.
Oh my gosh.
It's literally the second episode of the whole series. And they just had an episode where someone was killing off everyone that they have ever saved in order. And so he was back, but he got killed off right away because he was not very far up the list. Because he was so early. He was the first one to go. But it was just like, oh, I know this face. It was very off-putting to see him kiss somebody else.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
That wasn't Amber Marshall.
Only Amy and Ty can be together. It's the only faces. Yeah, and then in season 11, we have the baby, because Amy has the baby at the end of season 10, so we get to see them become parents, which is so cute.
Lindy is so freaking cute. I follow her, like, the twins' Instagram, because it's twins that play her.
Yeah, they're so cute.
They're so cute.
Just so adorable.
It's such great casting for her. I think she's really perfect
they're
to
really,
play.
really cute. And, like, they're always dressed alike because they play the same characters. They're always, like, dressed up like that.
Yeah, they're so cute.
It's just so perfect. And then in season 12, we have them, like, fostering Luke and all that stuff.
Which is my favorite. I hope that they
know.
either see Luke again or they foster another kid. Because I think that their family is one family member short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's really awesome that they, like, that's something I think we can really, I don't know, congratulate Heartland for. What's the word?
Yeah.
Give them the credit, because give them credit for, you know.
It was a hard storyline.
Yeah, and they don't just stick to, like, we're this pure, like, family that we're all, you know, everyone loves each other and it's only, you know.
Yeah.
Like the relatives.
Relatives, yeah. Like, it's only children who have, you know, been biological. They really have a lot of, like, blended families.
I think, and I think
Heartland,
that's
which I love.
Really, I mean, I think we talked about this a bit in episode 7 as well, but, like, Peter's almost been more of a member of the family since he and Luke got divorced than he was when they were together.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Like, he's almost more involved now with the family, and I think it was a brave choice. I mean, I complained about it in the episode. I remember complaining about it, but I remember thinking, like, I was really sad to see Luke go. Like, I really thought that they were going to keep Luke. But also, like, that's how the foster system's supposed to work. The goal of the foster system is if it's good for the child to get them back with their biological parents. Yeah. If that's what the best thing is for them. And, like, that's a hard thing to do on a show.
Yeah. It's something that's not represented on shows a lot.
Yeah, it was nice to see it.
But it was so great as well. And I didn't write anything down for season 13 because I forgot season 13 existed. I mean, it's a total fan.
Yeah, just really a lot of the same. I think that once Amy and Ty got married, their relationship, like, really changed, kind of, where it went less of, like, kind of issues that, I don't know, I guess less of non-marital issues, you know? Like, once they got married, they know, okay, we're going to be together forever. We just have to figure out, like, how to work through it, so.
Yeah. I think the big thing now is they're working on, like, running a business together as well as being married. Like, their marriage is really solid, and they've got this beautiful daughter and stuff. Like, they're trying to make but now they're trying to make a business work, and they've got, like, pretty different business personalities, and, like, ways that they think about business are really different, so.
Yeah,
I think that's the changes we're seeing now.
Yeah, totally. And it's also nice, I think, for Heartland to, for me as a viewer, it's nice to have this couple that, like, okay, if nothing else is good, at least Amy and Ty are good. Like, they're such a beautiful couple, and they're just so obviously meant for each other. Exactly. You know, it's like a through line all the way through the show. Hopefully. Don't jinx it.
At this point, they've been through so much. I can't think of a single thing that either one of them could do that would make the other person, like, want to break up with them.
No.
Exactly.
Like, you know, like, it's not so much of a will, they won't, they will, they have.
Exactly.
They've made it past the point. Like, they're just together now.
Yeah, and they know that each other are their person, and It's so nice to see like these young people like fully committed to each other in such a beautiful way. It's so nice.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I forgot one moment that I wanted to talk about, which is one of the cutest scenes, is when Amy loses her vision in season 8, which is not my favorite season, but like when she gets back and she gets her eyesight back and she just looks at Ty and is like, you have like the greenest eyes. And it's just such a cute scene.
That is a really cute scene. I actually want to talk about that scene, not that part of that episode, but like I want to talk about the episode also. I just wasn't sure how to collect my thoughts about it. But since you brought it up,
There we go.
I'll push through and I'll collect my thoughts. I just think there's something so beautiful where like Ty was just so much like, I don't care what your family says, like we're just gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
We're a couple now, we're building our lives together. I want to be the one to figure this out for us. That was like really grown up and nice, and the family is really important, obviously, to both of them. But like also that was kind of like, I think that was kind of like the first real moment where Ty was like, we're a couple separate from your family.
Exactly.
And
like,
we have to make this hard decision.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what you want, even if it's not what your family wants.
Yeah, exactly. It's you and me, and we're, you know, a unit, and we can figure out whatever it is like together.
Yeah. It was so sweet.
Yeah, they're an awesome couple.
They really are. They really are.
For sure. Okay, that's all I have to say so far.
Okay.
Does anybody else want to go?
I'll go.
Yeah, you talk. Tell us.
Get it out of the way.
Down memory lane. It's been so long since I really thought about the Hunger Games, which I also love.
That was my thing when I was in elementary. That was my thing. I was so obsessed with the Hunger Games. I bought every single like manual like book about it. Oh my gosh, obsessed. But I just want to credit fandom.com, which I also found my Captain Swan information about on. I also found they do 4. Yeah, they do a really good job at like just chronologing everything and putting all the information about really specific things, like specifically Everlark, just all the information in one spot. It's amazing. So credit to them for a lot of this information. So like I said, I'm doing the couple Everlark, which is made up of Katniss Everdeen, portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence, and Peeta Mellark, portrayed by Josh Hutcherson. So, yeah, they are from the Hunger Games franchise, which is written by Suzanne Collins, and there is 4 movies, 3 books. Well, I guess 4 books now. I haven't read the epilogue one. Don't, come for me. Don't yell at me, but...
There's a new one? What?
Yeah, like there's a new one that just came out.
It's a prequel. I'm reading it right now. I'm about a third of the way through.
Is it good?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm listening to it on Audible. It's a prequel. It's like really focused on President Snow, like before he was president, and like it's really interesting. I've already learned so much.
Okay, fun. I'm really glad that one of us is like started listening to it anyways, because I don't yell at me. Hunger Games stands. I just haven't had time.
No,
I'm sorry.
Actually, Riverdale has this running gag where Louis' roommate Marty, Louis always says my roommate Marty and then says what? But his roommate Alex, read it like right away and was like, you need to read this right now because I need to talk about it.
Okay, fine.
Like, apparently, like the ending's crazy, and I'm getting through it now.
Okay, yay!
Intrigue.
That's so exciting. I'm definitely going to read that then. I'm glad that there's someone that I know that has read it or is reading it. So that is definitely now on my list. Mm-hmm. But to kind of give a history of Everlark, and I also tried to, out of all of the books and movies and everything, kind of condense it as much as I can and not just recount the movies / books. Mm-hmm. So, and also keep it brief and not just and also try not to spoil the plot as much as I can. So this is a pretty brief history if I'm able to. Pull it off.
Everlark focused history.
Yes, so there are moments that I didn't put, but that's because they're super, super, super spoilery, especially for the last movie. Which, I mean, if you haven't watched The Hunger Games or read the books.
Yeah, they came out in 2014 or something like that.
Do it. It's so worth it. It's
you've had 6
amazing.
Years.
Yes, just do it.
I think that is maybe aimed at me, who still hasn't finished the third book.
But you...
But if you get spoiled
have
at
you...
this point, you're not going to be mad.
No,
Years.
Yes,
I already knew that you at least hadn't... Like, I didn't even know if you... Have you seen the movies or no?
No, I've read the first 2.5 books, and that's it.
Well, you know enough.
I know
anyways.
enough.
Well, okay, so let me give you a history then. So, Peeta has had a crush on Katniss since he was 5 years old. He described seeing her at school, describing seeing her volunteer to sing the Valley song in her music class, and falling for her at that very moment. When they are both 11, Peeta purposely burns bread to give to Katniss, whose family has been starving, and then endures a beating from his mother as a punishment. This essentially saves her and her family's life, and then from then on, Katniss realizes that she has to step up and be the provider for her family. Katniss and Peeta, both now 16 years old, are picked for the Hunger Games, which is the main plot of the first movie anyways, I guess the whole thing, but they are both mentored by drunken Hamish Abernathy, who urges the two to be friendly, but they protest because of their tendency to argue. Mm-hmm. One thing that we mentioned was that all of our couples this episode have kind of a hate to love kind of storyline, which is really interesting.
Which was true in episode 4 as well.
That's crazy.
Apparently, we love that
very
trope,
much.
Apparently.
I talked about this when I talked about my couple, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again, but that's very much stems from my from my pick. That's the thing I'm a real sucker for, and it stems from this being my role model.
Like if you had asked me if that was a kind of romance that I enjoyed, without giving any examples, I would have been like probably not. Like that's kind of
it sounds
cliche, and weird to. I mean, feels unrealistic, but when you start picking. Like, when I started picking my favorite ships, I'm like, well, maybe I do actually like it. It just adds a lot to the story, I think.
Yeah.
So, Peeta... Okay, so they don't really want to be friendly when they're training for the games, but Hamish wants them to, kind of to appear as a unit to the other districts and other participants. So during the interviews with Caesar Flickerman, Peeta reveals his feelings for her. Katniss is super pissed about it, but Hamish encourages them to play up this star-crossed lovers idea to be able to get more sponsors in the game, which for anyone who doesn't know is how you get medicine, they can send you food, they can send you like all this special stuff that can help you survive during the Hunger Games. So once the games start, Katniss and Peeta eventually find each other and team up. She nurses him back to health when he has blood poisoning and protects him pretty much all the way throughout, kind of acts as a leader when they team up and decide to actually officially work together and protect each other, and mostly her protect him. But
it's really nice to see that, because usually that dynamic is really flipped in a heterosexual relationship.
Exactly.
It's almost always the man that's doing the caring. Like, I mean, not so much the caring. It's usually the woman doing like the healing caring, but it's usually like a man doing like the physical protecting, the hunting,
exactly.
And it's nice to see her do all of it.
I think that Hunger Games stuck out as a teen, what would you even call it? Teen story, young adult, YA kind of story.
YA story,
To me, because that was the case, and because Katniss was so like such a strong personality, and once she finds Peeta and they start to like actually develop this relationship, none of her personality is like diminished, and she doesn't just become the other half of Peeta. She is still herself. So she is protecting him and providing for him while he is sick and gets him the medicine that he needs. They, at the end of the games, decide to eat nightlock berries as the final two instead of killing each other, which forces the Capitol to allow them both to win/survive. The second movie, they are entered into another round of the games called the Quarter Quell, but they both survive. The Capitol in the third movie captures Peeta and tortures him, but they end up rescuing him, though he ends up being poisoned against Katniss and tries to attack her. In this movie, also, this is the last movie, I believe. Katniss tries to commit suicide with nightlock pills, and Peeta stops her. Soon after that, and there is a lot of, like, plot in this part specifically that I'm leaving out because it's spoiled all 3 books.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So after her suicide almost attempt, she is jailed for something that happens in the last book and then ends up being released years later. She's exiled out of Panem with Peeta by her side. 15 years later, they have their first child, who's a girl, and then a second, a few years later, who is a boy. And the way they're described in the very last book is so cute. Oh my gosh.
It's so beautiful.
Reading some excerpts from the book today, like, it just brings back so many memories. It's such a huge part of my childhood and I don't know, adolescence, I guess. So some hardships that they've gone through. The Hunger Games trauma, obviously. The first and second games, all the way throughout being afraid for their lives. They've both been tortured at some point, whether it was by elements of the games or actually Peeta being captured and tortured. They end up resenting each other at one point or another throughout the story, and they both struggle to find something to live for all the way through. And as the story progresses, one will struggle with feeling worthy and feeling like they, having survivor's guilt, and then the other one will, and they both grow through that in their own ways. So, why they are a great ship. I think that they're a really classic example of how, kind of unfortunately, how sad how this has to happen, but traumatic experiences really interlock two people forever. Going through
for sure.
something like that just bonds you for life. And they really, after everything that happened, like, they couldn't have ended up with anyone else because no one could have ever known what they had gone through but each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. I haven't thought about this in years. It's been a while since I rewatched the book, and I don't think this line actually made it into the movies. I think it's the third one. I remember, like, Gale and Peeta talking, and, like, they don't know the Katniss can, like, hear. And, like, I just remember Gale saying, like, she loves us both, but, like, she can't live without you, like, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, I think that was for sure in the books, but yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it made it to the movies.
Because it is a really beautiful moment. Susan Collins wrote there.
Oh, it's so well written, and the whole story, I think, has so many different elements to it. I could talk about, like, different parts of it just forever.
We might have to do an episode on the Hunger Games.
We might. Oh my gosh, we should. So, kind of how I mentioned a little bit before, Katniss does not need him. She does not want or need him to protect her, and she knows, everyone knows, and so does she, that she can survive without him, but she eventually grows to want him in her life rather than feeling like she has to need him or look like she needs him. Peeta is patient and soft, which is a stark contrast to Katniss's blunt and strong, fierce personality, which I think really makes them an interesting couple to watch and grow to love. And then finally, the current status is married with children. And that is my first ever ship that I super, super, super shipped and loved. I think I talk about this a little bit after, but I totally was not. I mean, I think I took it out on the actual character Gale, but I think it's just the matter of the Hunger Games trying to make this love triangle happen, whereas I think that the story totally could have stood on its own without Gale being like a love interest.
I agree, and I think especially because in that early book, there's like no romantic anything happening between Katniss and Gale. Like, it's not like there's like a lot of groundwork, like for that.
Yeah, and it would have been also really nice, I think, like a nice addition, as well as all the other cool stuff that they do with stereotypes, to kind of have that friend of hers that is a guy but isn't romantic. I think that would have been really cool. That to kind of also show young women who this is, well, young people obviously, but also the young women who were reading it, and me being a young woman who was reading it, that you can have a male friend and not be romantically attracted to them.
Yeah,
I think would have been cool.
as someone who, you know, I've had a lot of male friends over the years, like, I can't make two my roommate Alex jokes in one podcast segment. But like we live together, like.
Yeah.
I live with 3 guys right now. Like, you know, like I get along just as well, if not better, with guys than I do with girls. Like, and like, you know, like there isn't a lot of modeling for that for young girls.
Yeah, absolutely. No. You don't see that very often, and I think it would have been a really cool thing to
And I think for men as well, I think it would have been nice to see. Like, Gale and Katniss have this really close friends. They're, like, almost siblings. Like, they really take care of one another's families. They're really attached to one another's siblings. And then, like, I think it would have been nice to see Katniss becoming romantically involved with this other man. And, like, her, like, you know, surrogate brother is, like, not just, like, fine with it, but also, like, maybe, like, they become friends. I think that would have been nice to see also. Because I think, like, men are, like, so directed to be so protective of the women in their lives, all like whether it's a romantic connection or like siblings, and I don't think that's really the case. I mean, women can make their own judgments on who they want to spend their time with. I would never I have a brother who's you know, he's an adult now, but like he's my younger brother, and like I would never stand for him to tell me that I can't date somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what does he know? About my life? Like, I just, you know, I think that like playing up this like men should be jealous of other men.
Yeah,
you know, and it's not super healthy.
And kind of like having this stereotypical like cliche kind of thing of, you know, the male friend that they've, you know, grown up together and everything. It kind of insinuates that like, I don't know.
You're supposed to fall in love with that person.
Exactly. And that he always has had this idea of pursuing her and has always, you know, thought of her this way and
didn't act on it for like 6 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And then stupid that another guy has to, I don't know, threaten that in quotes for him to like.
And you're right, the story didn't need it. And then also there's also, I mean, without spoiling the thing that happens. But there's also a thing that Gale might have done. Like, we don't know that he did it, but he definitely had a part in it, might have done it. That was really, really unforgivable to Katniss. And it's almost like if we didn't have this Gale, Katniss, Peeta triangle, then like she would have just like picked Peeta on her own. But like it's almost like Gale did this unforgivable thing, so she can't forgive him, and she like it's just over for them. Like it's almost like Peeta wins by default because he's done this unforgivable thing.
Yeah, which is dumb. Which is dumb. That's right.
From this thing that Katniss and Peeta have all on their own.
Exactly. Like we don't get to see if she would have just picked him anyways. It kind of, like you said, wins by default, which is stupid because it shouldn't have been a competition.
Really beautiful and wonderful together.
That was a good conversation. Yeah, that was
for sure.
The Hunger
I'm glad we went
Games
on that
so
unexpected tangent.
It's
been a long time. I mean, I do rewatch the Hunger Games movies pretty, I wouldn't say regularly, but you know, I've rewatched them a couple times. Every once in a while, like see one pop up somewhere on Netflix, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't seen those in a while, and I'll just rewatch them all.
Yeah, the Hunger Games meant a lot to me when I was growing up.
But I haven't reread them in a while.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't read the books, I know, for a long, long time. I know, I think I've seen the movie quite a few times. I was so excited for the first movie to come out, but I, like, rewatched the trailer, like, probably upwards of 100 times and memorized every sound effect, every breath. I would watch it every single night before I went to sleep. It was so lame.
I mean, you know, it's just like when you're really, really anticipating something, you just want everything
exactly.
Every possibility. But you've definitely reignited my interest in Hunger Games because of your excitement of it. So I might have to find the books again.
It's great. So especially the books.
Back up.
Yeah.
The books are so good. I mean, we talk a lot about the movies here, but like
Yeah.
because they're like more concise. But yeah, like the books are so beautiful.
They are so good. So at least finish the books, and then at least you can pace yourself a little bit, because there are some parts, like obviously torture and stuff, like that's all like pretty dark. And there are some dark.
It really did not feel dark
stuff
back then, but I feel like if I reread it now, it would affect me more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were. I was 10 when I read the first book. Well, and all of them, I read all of them in like a week. But
I was in grade 7, so I was probably
13, 12.
I think because I'm like young in my grade, I think I would have been 11 or 12.
11. Right.
Yeah, that's a time.
yeah. It didn't seem that dark.
It didn't. I don't think it really sunk in what exactly it was we were reading back then. I don't think we really knew what that was.
Because it was just a story, right? So I mean, obviously you're empathetic for the characters, but you know that there's no actual person being hurt. But going back today, especially, and you know, I had to mention that like he was tortured for information, and she had to see him weaken. It was rough. I haven't finished the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, or I think that's the title. I really hope I didn't get that title. But I obviously haven't finished it yet, but like I think it's more clear in these books that this is a dystopian version of the universe, of the world that we live in now. Right.
I think it took me a while, the first when I was actually reading the books and like watching the movies, to realize that this is our world, that this is taking place in. This isn't some fictional universe. It's not like Harry Potter where there's like magic. You know, this is just technology that we've developed in the future. And like a war that we've had that's just wiped out society in the future. Like, and I think that also adds a little element of like, oh, like this torture is like torture that people could do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is like all of these elements are somehow kind of believable that could be something
anytime
that we could.
There's new technology, it's not hard to see. Like, I think the thing in the Hunger Games is a lot of like we see a lot of remnants of this like really great technology of the actual like war times, where it's like this. Like the Mockingbird, like is the big symbol of the Hunger Games, and like it comes from like this failed technology from the Capitol, and it's like was meant to be malicious, but it's turned into this like mundane thing. Like it's not malicious anymore; it's evolved because nature. But like I think just like we see a few things in the first few chapters of this new like prequel of like what things were like more during that actual like war.
Yeah, cool. And I think it's also partly like trying to play off, I mean, maybe she wasn't even thinking this, but like I kind of relate it to how, you know, everyone always talks about how desensitized we are to things, and that's kind of what happens in the Hunger Games, that everyone in the Capitol becomes so unempathetic and not affected by the fact that these are children that are killing each other. It just becomes this dystopian reality.
Without spoiling anything, obviously, because I don't know how anything ends, but like the whole premise of this like second book is it's the first game where they have game makers. Like they've just been throwing kids in to kill each other with no real entertainment factor. Right. And like it's not popular to watch because like the people in the Capitol aren't really into it because it's not entertaining. It's just horrible.
Right. Exactly.
And like this is the first year where it's like being made in a way that is like meant to desensitize people to the fact that it's horrible.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like the real origin of that, which is which is the scary thing about the people from the Capitol. Like we see more, we don't see a lot of minor characters in Hunger Games. We've really gone on a tangent, but like we see with the characters that live in the Capitol that we do see, we see that it is so just part of their culture. They don't even really think about it. And I think you're right. That's the point. That's the statement that's being made there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was really good for me in particular, like how I grew up. It was good for me to kind of take a step back and look at, get really existential about what I was actually watching, and like
for sure
become more aware that, you know, this is stuff that's being produced. And
I always think I like a lot of like crime fiction. Like you do too. I know. Like we've said, we've watched, like you watch a lot of CSI. Like I'm watching like Chicago PD, and like we have the luxury of being white, and so,
exactly.
Like, we're not you know, like our relationship with police isn't necessarily hostile, so we can really get into these like where the police are the good guys, and like they can break the rules to catch the bad guy, and it doesn't matter. But like 3 people got shot in this episode that I just watched, and I didn't didn't even really, I'm like, oh, they're gonna do a lot of paperwork
Yeah.
for killing those 3 people. But like, no, I think you're right. Like, it is important. I think that's part of why we wanted to do this podcast, was like, let's actually look at what we're watching and what's being said here. And I think in the Hunger Games, a lot of it is like, if you're not thinking about what's actually happening behind the media you're consuming, then you're part of the problem.
Exactly. That's kind of what I meant when I said like, like I could talk about every element of this and how you know, how great the ship is, but also how it talks about media and dystopian stuff and all that. But we should move on.
We have our episode scheduled like pretty far out, but I think we do need to add that in.
This needs to be added to the list.
Absolutely. It's something that can be definitely, it's so good. I can talk about it forever.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was going to be this much talking, but I agree. I have a lot I could say about this series, other teen series. I think we touched a little bit on our very first episode, but like, I think that we're coming back to it now.
Yeah, sure. Editing KJ, add that to our scheduled episodes.
I think KJ will do that.
Okay, thank you, Editing KJ. Love you.
Okay, so like I said at the top of the episode, I'm talking about Sherbert, which is Anne Shirley and Gilbert Blythe. There's a lot of different name. It is so cute. There's a lot of different versions of the Anne stories. My first exposure to the Anne stories is through the book. I believe I recommended in episode 4 and probably in other episodes before or after that, the CBC/Netflix series Anne. Sometimes it's called Anne with an E. Depends where you are, what you're watching. But it has 3 seasons, I think, and it's really good. I'm gonna mostly talk about the books, but any clips that I've edited and KJ decides to throw in here are gonna be from that series. There's been lots of different like movie adaptations and film adaptations. Some of the earliest films were Anne of Green Gables adaptations. Like, it's been adapted pretty much since the time that there was movies and television. It's a real Canadian classic, and like I said, it's the source of my enemies to friends to lovers trope. And like, it's a trope that I really kept with through my whole life with all the media I consume. Even when I don't love some of the things that come out, I don't think that love should be difficult in a lot of ways. Like, I think that our relationship is work, but I don't think that love should be hard.
I like that. Sense. That's a really good. That's a really good way to put it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think some of that's here. But I think this is definitely the source of that kind of attitude for me about love. And like, I think that a lot of my ideas about love come from this model that I've built based on this relationship that's depicted. Anne of Green Gables is the first book in the series. And I think that that's the one most people are familiar with. And if you just read that, I mean, it's already so good. So congrats on having that in your life. But I think you don't get a lot of this shift just in that. I think you get a lot of the foundations, but you don't get a lot of the actual like culmination of all of it. So let's just get into it.
Okay, fun. Tell us.
Incredible.
So across all of the adaptations, Anne and Gilbert's first meeting is pretty consistent. So they meet in school and initially don't hit it off. So Gilbert's one of the most popular, like, smart kids in school. He's a year behind in school in most of the versions, because sometimes 2 years, because his father's been sick. And so he kind of like misses Anne's first day, but like he's there for her like second day. And Anne is not enthralled by him on sight, as some of the other little girls are that she goes to school with. And his little boy brain does not know what to do with that.
Right.
And he's very intrigued by her. He doesn't like being ignored. So she's like ignoring him, and he pulls her braids and calls her carrots. And Anne is very, very sensitive about her looks, and in particular her red hair. So she takes her slate and she cracks it over his head and vows to hate him forever, because she gets in big trouble for doing that and losing her temper. So Anne makes it her mission in life to beat Gilbert at school, and they quickly find themselves to be at the top of the class. In the books, I don't think Gilbert knows that it's not a friendly competition. Like, Gilbert is like, this girl's smart, and like, we're like at the top of the class, and like, I just want to like prove that I'm like a little bit better, but like, it's really friendly on his end, and then Anne is not friendly on her end at all. She wants to
I will destroy you.
Yeah. And I've definitely had this relationship with people before.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
I've had this relationship with other friends. I've had this relationship like romantically in high school. Like, it's just I related.
Yeah.
So Gilbert literally saves Anne from drowning, and she still does not forgive him. Like, he says that he wants to be friends, and she's like, no, we can't be friends. And then at the end of the Anne of Green Gables book, Anne and Gilbert they meet up and they're walking home together. They start talking, and Anne decides that they should be friends. She's kind of had some regrets, and she didn't forgive him when he saved her life.
Right.
And and they are out talking for like half an hour, and like she doesn't even realize it's been half an hour. She comes inside, and if you just read the first one, then you might not have super strong feelings about that ship, because that's where it ends for you. And you have to go to the subsequent book before things get good. But like the little thing I just want to add in here is it's Anne and Gilbert's like relationship is really nice, but it's also kind of parallel because Anne's adoptive parents, Matthew and Marilla, who are siblings, because you know, in the 1800s you could just both adopt a child and be siblings, and it was cool. I feel like it just like wasn't that much of a formal adoption back then either. Like, just,
yeah, they probably
fed the child and clothed them and cared for them.
Yeah, there wasn't
it didn't
too
really
much checking up on that, probably.
But the reason that they needed to adopt a child is because neither of them ever married, and they were getting older, and they needed help with the farm work, and it was a whole mix-up. If you haven't read Anne of Green Gables and have no idea anything about any of the background of Anne of Green Gables, like, it's a Canadian classic, please enjoy it. I'm not going to tell it all to you, but like, one of the things about Marilla is like, she did have a romance once in her life with Gilbert's father, and then she got cold feet and it never really worked out, and so like it was like one of her big regrets. And then like now she sees Anne and Gilbert, and they have this like real tumultuous back and forth where they kind of make a lot of the same mistakes, and I think it was very difficult for Marilla, but also I think it made her really invested to see like, oh, like this is the second chance of like what could have been with in my own life. Like we missed our opportunity, but maybe our kids have a chance. And usually I'm very anti parents having past relationships and then their kids having relationships. That's well documented.
Yes.
On this podcast.
I think you may have mentioned that before.
I have an issue with this. In this case, I don't have an issue because it's just been like so long, and it's like it's not like the parents ever get back together or anything. So
it's not a current relationship. Yeah.
So Anne and Gilbert, they both study for Queen's College, and they both need scholarships. So they're both like still at the top of the class. They're still really competing, but it's more friendly on both ends. They're both in the friendly competition mindset now.
Right,
but they do need these scholarships. Like, they both have financial need for it. Gilbert's father is sick and dies in the show. Gilbert's father dies while they're still like in like school, pretty young. And I don't remember in the books when Gilbert's father dies, but I do remember that his father does die. But Anne and Gilbert, they both study for Queen's, and they both need these scholarships. They end up splitting most of the biggest ones, so they can both kind of afford to go to college. Anne does really well in English, where Gilbert is more like sciencey. Anne hates arithmetic, so I relate.
Mood.
So the thing to do after Queen's is either to continue schooling or to become a teacher. Anne got a scholarship to go to Redmond College, which is a fictional college. It's based on Dalhousie University, apparently. But Marilla's eyesight starts to fail, and so she turns down the scholarship to stay and help Marilla, because she needs the help, and they're like the only family that they have left. And Gilbert was appointed to teach at their hometown school in Avonlea, but he gives up that appointed position and goes to a different town so she can teach at the hometown school. They teach for 2 years, and they become very, very close friends, because they're like living in close towns to one another. And then circumstances change for Anne, and they allow her to go to college. And Gilbert's also going to be going to college that year. He's saved up enough money by teaching that he can start going to school. He walks her home again, and it's the first time that Anne like entertains the idea that Gilbert might have feelings for her. But Anne's complicated. So the third book in the series is called Anne of the Island, and it's the book I think of the most when I think of the Anne and Gilbert love story. So Anne does very well at college, and that's a very important time socially for a young woman, because it's the late 1800s, and even though these women are out getting higher education, that's a pretty new thing, and they're also very much there to find husbands. Like, you go to college so that you can find a husband and get married. Like, it's good if you get educated along the way, but you're not going to be able to work once you get married, so your real goal is to get married.
Right.
Because 1800s. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that is the goal.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
And Anne and Gilbert definitely have feelings for each other, but Anne doesn't believe that what she's feeling is love, so she's really uncomfortable with her own feelings. She doesn't really know how to deal with them. Like, she's unwilling to admit that the feelings she's feeling are romantic in any way. Gilbert proposes to Anne because he is more in tune with his feelings. And
So
she's
cute.
really caught up in this idea of like a fantasy man. Like her idea of love is like this big fantasy where you get like swept off your feet. And she turns down his proposal because this couldn't possibly be that. And it does do some damage to their friendship. And it also is also proposed to by another man who's named Charlie Sloan, and she also turns him down because he's even worse than Gilbert.
I love it.
And then, yeah, this book is everyone knows that these two people are in love with each other, except for these two people.
Right.
You know the
classic.
situation. The classic.
Yeah. The story we all know and love.
Yeah. It's so frustrating for everyone else. But Anne starts courting a man who fits her fantasy of the ideal, like, tall, dark, and handsome that she's got this whole fantasy thing for. That's the whole reason she turned on Gilbert, is he doesn't fit this fantasy. And she finds a man who does, and they court for like a year and a half.
Oh, God.
The rumors are consistently like they're going to announce their engagement any day. And then there's also a lot of rumors that Gilbert is courting a woman named Christine Stewart. And then Roy Gardner, who's Anne's man, proposes to her, and she does not accept their proposal, and she ends their relationship on the spot. Like, he takes them back to like the place where they met, and he's like, "We've been dating for a year and a half. Like, let's get married. That's what you're supposed to do." She's like, "Oh no, this is horrible. I cannot do this," and she doesn't even know why she can't do it. And then Gilbert falls horribly ill with typhoid fever because he's been working himself to death at college. And Anne gets home and she finds out that he's dying, and she realizes she's in love with him and he might not make it through the night. And she stays up all night, and then the next morning she finds out that he turned the corner overnight and he's gonna recover. And once he recovers, he proposes again, and she accepts.
Aww.
Oh, 1800 love.
Anne
so many
has
proposals.
Anne has a while where Gilbert's recovering, and then he starts to coming around, and it's like kind of like how they were before they went to college, and she's like,
Right.
"Oh no, he doesn't have romantic feelings anymore." And like in the middle of the proposal is when we find out that Christine Stewart, the woman that Gilbert was like courting, was actually engaged to someone else the whole time. And her brother just asked Gilbert to like look out for her. Like her brother was like done college, and then his sister was coming to college the next day, and he's like, "She doesn't know anyone in this town. Like, hey, can you like look out for her?" And then he was like, "Yeah, sure." And then he ended up like being friends with her and enjoying her company. So they were never romantically involved. She was engaged the whole time.
Oh.
No.
But it was like mid-proposal that we found all this out.
Right.
Very tumultuous. So Gilbert wants to be a doctor. So like he's like, "I really want to get like marry you, but it's gonna be a few years before we can get married because I have to go to medical school." So Anne moves to another town to continue teaching, and Gilbert does his medical training, and Anne becomes principal. And I don't remember this being a thing in the book, but according to Wikipedia, being a school principal in the 1800s made you equal in society to a man who's in medical school.
Wow.
I do not think that this was a conflict at any point in the story from what I remember. It's been a while since I reread that portion of the story, but I do not remember that actually being an issue. But it was just something that Wikipedia noted, so I thought maybe it was worth mentioning because I thought that was a weird thing to note.
Yeah.
That it made them equals, but they don't live together in this time. Like he's studying medical school and she's like living, and they write letters back and forth the whole book. It's really sweet.
Aww.
I love that so much.
So they have a 3-year engagement, and then they get married at Green Gables, and then they move immediately after their wedding to Glen St. Mary because Gilbert's uncle is also a doctor and he's retiring, so the town needs a new doctor, and he's a freshly minted doctor. They're very in love, and it's really beautiful. Anne's House of Dreams is the book that I read the most frequently, aside from like the first one. It's really interesting. Anne has a bit of a hard time adjusting to being a stay-at-home wife, especially because like they have someone that cooks and cleans for them. So like there's not a lot for her to do. Not that Anne was ever good at cooking or cleaning, in particular, but like that's what you're supposed to do as a wife, and she doesn't really have to do that. Like she kind of just gets to like socialize and like do things she wants to do, but like it's hard for her. Like she's been working this whole time, and she kind of worked her whole life like when she was an orphan. Like she worked like raising like as like a live-in nanny from the time she was like 6. So like like she's not really good at like not working. She has a pretty strong work ethic, so being a stay-home wife is hard for her. But people come to love Dr. Blythe and Mrs. Dr. Blythe, and they become pillars in their community. And then their first child, Joy, dies shortly after birth, and Anne's also nearly killed. She's very, very sick, and they're both just devastated. However, they have a second healthy child who's a boy, and in total they have 7 children, and like
Wow.
the six of them end up being healthy. Aside from that first one, Anne gets really sick again after one of the other births, but she pulls through.
Mm-hmm.
And then the latest installments of the Anne series see all 3 of Anne and Gilbert's sons go to war in the First World War, because that gets up full swing in Europe. And we were still pretty newly independent in the early 1900s in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
but we still jumped right on that bandwagon to go to war.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So all 3 of their sons go to war. 2 of their daughters' fiancés are also serving in the war. So one of their sons, Jem, goes missing in action for 5 months at the end of the war before returning home. And in 1916, one of their sons, Walter, is killed in action. And Walter is based partly off of John McCrae, who wrote In Flanders Fields, who apparently Lucy Maud Montgomery was friends with. I didn't know this.
What?
Wikipedia told me this. But
That
apparently,
is so cool. That's
Walter's
really
a
cool.
really sweet character. And I hope that factoid is true.
That's really cool. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's another book that I haven't read. I mean, there's other books that take place in like the areas, and it's like Anne's a peripheral character. It's not like part of the Anne series, and it takes place in like the early parts of World War II. And Anne is in her 70s. She has at least 5 grandchildren, 3 of which are like adults and have enlisted in the war. I would assume that those 3 are boys, but like by the Second World War, I guess women were enlisting.
Yeah.
And according to Wikipedia, Anne and Gilbert have continued to have like a really teasing relationship where they like make fun of each other, and it's fun and loving, and like they've been married for like 50 years.
That is
Fantastic.
so cute.
So beautiful. Anne is like pretty much universally seen as like weird and quirky, and people like grow to love her for her weird and quirkiness. But it just seems like these are the things that Gilbert has loved best from day one. Like Gilbert always says, like, I fell in love with you the second you cracked a slate over my head. He just loves her. And then I'm gonna venture. I kind of kept to the books here, but I'm just gonna steer into the CBC Netflix show for a minute, because Anne and Gilbert get together in the final episode, and then they didn't renew the series for another season.
That is so
which is really sad, but it's really beautiful also. After a series of miscommunications, Anne and Gilbert find out that the other one is like available / open to a relationship at like the same time. So Anne like runs home to pack to go back to her hometown to tell him that she does have feelings for him. And like as she's getting out the door, he has like just arrived at her front door.
What a beautiful scene.
They kiss, and it's really beautiful, and they agree to be pen pals because he's going to the University of Toronto and she's going to Queen's, and it's just beautifully shot. We've been waiting like all these seasons for it, and it's just very satisfying, and I wish that they decide to continue the show. I'm hoping that like maybe they'll reconsider. And then Amy Beth McNulty and Lucas Jade Zuman, who are Anne and Gilbert respectively, are just really wonderful in their portrayal throughout the show, but like this episode in particular is just so good. And Diana was a real ride or die for Anne. Like Diana's like, this is the last possible minute that they could get together for the next like couple of years, if not ever. And she just sits Gilbert down and she's like, you're an idiot. And she just lays it all out and tells him that Anne's been in love with him like for this whole time, and it's so beautiful.
So you simply never bothered to speak to Anne about any of this?
Had I had the opportunity to, I would have. In fact, I
You've
went
had
on.
every opportunity. For years. Admit it. You've been smitten with Anne ever since she first came to Avonlea and smashed her slate over your head. There have been countless clues, and you certainly can't deny you were beguiled by her at dance practice, even though it turns out you were secretly courting a mystery debutante who you had the temerity to step out with at the county fair with no word of warning. Then you show up at the ruins after exams and demand to know how Anne feels about you, and give her all of 30 seconds to decide her entire future. And worst of all, you callously ignored the letter Anne wrote to you, even though she told you she loved you.
What letter? Diana, what letter?
Let me know if you need more Anne Shirley content, and I will find a way to get these two on board. I definitely recommend watching the show. I literally have all of them. I have a prequel that was like not written by Lucy Maud Montgomery, but it's really good. I have like I have all of them. I have all the Anne stuff.
I have a couple, but I don't have the complete series, so like
I have the complete series. And then there's another little moment I just wanted to like kind of wrap up with maybe, and we'll see if we get off on a tangent.
Okay.
But there's this little thing I think is so cute. So Gilbert picks out this engagement ring for Anne, and it has a pearl instead of a diamond, and everyone else is like, oh. But Anne loves it because as a kid, she didn't have any access to anything. She was an orphan. Sometimes she was like a couple weeks old, so she like grew up in like orphanages and like working for poor families. And she has like this. Her whole thing is she has this big imagination, and like she imagined the diamonds would be like an amethyst purpley color, and the fact that they aren't is like really disappointing for her. She's always been a little bit disappointed by diamonds. She doesn't really like them, and he gets her this like engagement ring that has pearls instead. And I just think it's so cute. And then pearls are like so sweet and classy.
Yeah.
And I just love it. And he's just like, oh, like he knew that.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful story of like, I think that's really cool to see like they knew each other from the beginning. Like they knew absolutely everything about each other and saw each other grow up.
Yeah, and like they had like all of their troubles are like before they get together. Like it kind of reminds me of like Peraltiago that we talked about in episode 4, where like there's a lot of like obstacles in the way to them getting together, but once they get together, like they get married and they stay married for their whole lives.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like there was no breaking up, and I mean I don't know if you could break up in the 1800s.
Yeah,
in the 1880s, could you break up and get back together? But, oh, and there's like 6 beautiful children.
That is such a sweet story. I'm super not. I don't know how growing up I totally missed that like series. I never had any access to the books or anything. Like I
literally had an Anne of Green Gables birthday party. We talked about this in episode 4, and like we were talking about this last night. My parents were here for my birthday, and like I made them bring my Anne books from my childhood home to my current home while they were coming up to see me, and because I was just so nostalgic preparing. But also like we were talking about this birthday party that my parents threw me, where like we got dressed up in costumes, and my mom made like raspberry cordial and pound cake and like things they ate in the books, and like my parents were good at birthday parties.
Cute.
My parents were so good at birthday parties.
I love that so much. How sweet is that?
Yeah,
I should definitely look and see if the Anne series is on Audible, because I would love to.
I'm sure that they might be. Anne's been translated to like 60 languages. It has a big following in like Asia, of all places. Like it's very popular.
How many books are there?
There's 8 in the main series, but like the 8th one, like the 8th one is like more about Anne's kids than it is about Anne.
Right.
Fair.
I'll definitely have to try it, because I've never. Yeah. I mean, I know the story generally, but I definitely want to try it. Like
they can be a lot. I mean, they were written like so long ago that like some of it, like it can be a hard read at times, just because it's kind of like it's not on like a Hamlet or like a Shakespeare level, but it is kind of like that, like, you know, people wrote differently in the like early 1900s than they do now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good job.
I'm so glad I convinced you guys that this is something you guys
No. Like, the only one that I used to watch the Megan Follows version of it that was released. We had that on box tape. So I used to watch that over and over and over again. So like Megan now Follows I need to
really great.
We love her so much.
I just have Audible pulled up, and I think that they have a collection that has all of them, like, in one audiobook.
Ooh.
Oh, fun. Okay, I'll definitely have to give that a try.
It's very long. It's 73 hours and 19 minutes.
But gosh.
It has like 1 to 6, which is the main ones. They were published between 1908 and 1921, like the original 6 in the series. So, so yeah, like they've been around for a while. Oh, that does actually remind me though. It was my 8th birthday. I was having a hard time remembering which birthday that would have been. But I remember it worked out so good because I was really, really into it, and it was the centennial of the first one being published.
Oh my god!
So it was my 8th birthday that year.
That is so cute.
That's awesome. That's really. I'm really glad that you talked about that. Like and like at such a good amount of detail, because it's such a Canadian staple. I think it's really.
The closest thing I compare it to is something else I love, which is like Little Women. It's like a very like stories about like the home. You know, like it's not like a adventure or like it's like it's just like a look into someone's life or like a family's life.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I love Little Women, but it's like the Canadian version of Little Women.
So, do we want to move on to our segments for?
Yeah,
I think we should. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do we want to do Love It or Lose It, which is like one thing you loved and one thing you'd rather get rid of from the ship that you talked about, I guess.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I don't know, KJ, if you want a tiny break from talking, because you talked a whole bunch just now. But I can start if you guys want. So what I would say that I loved from this ship in general is the fact that Katniss is a character that doesn't become this woman who falls in love with a guy. She stands on her own and doesn't need him and doesn't even really want to stick with him at first. She wants to do her own thing, but she wants to do well in the games as well, so ends up kind of doing that for her own benefit, not just to immediately fall into this romance. That's not what it's about, which I really love.
Yeah.
And then my lose it would be the Gale and Katniss romance storyline, which I was going to talk about here, but we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah, we pretty thoroughly covered that.
Yeah. Because I know that it probably got people talking and got people like really into the series and, you know, fighting over Team Peeta, Team Gale, or whatever. But I think it relates too closely to Twilight when it's really
did
so
Twilight
much.
come out first before Hunger Games? I don't remember. Maybe, I feel like Twilight came out first and like Team Edward versus Team Jacob was so popular.
Oh,
like, it was
so
such
intense.
a popular marketing tactic.
So that was exactly. And like you said, like the first book was didn't really include that love triangle angle. And yeah, so Twilight came out the first book in 2005.
The movies certainly did it more.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, than the books did. Like the movies definitely played that out.
The first Twilight book came out in 2005, and the first Hunger Games book came out in 2008. So
okay, yeah.
It relates too close to Twilight when it's really so much better of a series and story, as far as my opinion goes. And it's about so much more than a love triangle, and it didn't really need to be in the story, like we talked about before.
Moira, would you like to go now? I think
sure.
I already know Moira's lose it, but I'll be waiting.
I'm intrigued to know what you think my lose it's gonna be. But so my love it is just how much their relationship is based on friendship first. And that's a key part of like Amy and Ty's relationship is we're friends and our friendship is more important than like our romantic relationship. That's the thing that we're focusing on first. And my lose it is something that I already said in the Heartland episode, and it's just season 8. I don't want it to be there.
Yep, that's pretty much. I was going to say the Prince Almond storyline, which is season 8.
Yeah. See our coverage of Heartland.
That was our
episode
versatile lose.
Yeah,
I think
we all felt strongly.
Yes.
About that. On that note, I'd just like to say that I planned to prepare myself a love it and a lose it, and then I wrote nothing. But
so we're winging it.
Yeah, we're winging it, but I'm still willing to throw it out there. So my love it is definitely the fact that, like, I mean, they have like a really mutual respect for each other, which is so hard in like such a patriarchal society that is the 1800s. Women couldn't vote. Like, I remember that there's a portion of one of the books where they're talking about politics, and I knew nothing about politics at all. But honestly, that's probably aged like exactly the same. Like politics in Canada have maintained a lot of its major struggles throughout time.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, not much has changed in 100 years. But yeah, like if you like she couldn't even vote back then. Like. Yeah. But like it just seems like they just have such mutual respect for one another, and it feels like Gilbert is equally in love with 11-year-old Anne and like Principal Anne. Like when he looks at Anne, he sees both of those people at the same time. Like he sees like Anne who broke a slate over his head, and Anne who can handle like conflict in the workplace as a leader, and like they're both Anne to him, and it's so beautiful.
I love that.
And then my lose it's probably Roy Gardner. He's like, so perfect, and I just feel so bad for him because it's not fair to Roy Gardner that he courted Anne for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And he was like literally so perfect. He sounds like literally everybody's perfect man. Like if your type is tall, dark, and handsome, Roy Gardner was your guy because that's Anne's type. And like he's like the embodiment. He's supposed to be the embodiment of tall, dark, and handsome, and like fantasy man. That's the point. And then he just courted this woman for a year and a half, and like
Yeah.
Oof.
I feel bad for him. It's not his fault that Anne and Gilbert were madly in love.
Yeah,
and
he
we're just
was
really stubborn about it.
He thought something else was happening that really apparently wasn't.
I mean, Anne thought something else was happening
Until that very moment.
until he proposed, and then she was like, "Oh no, this cannot happen."
Yeah, never mind.
She called it a flattering fancy. That's what she's like, this is a flattering fancy. I'm like, it could never have been love. I was so crazy to mistake it for love.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
Okay.
my lose is just that this guy got hurt.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's so nice. We're skipping randomized rankings for this week.
Mm-hmm.
And does anyone have an I would name my kid that example?
So I do. So like, I know last time when we did the shipping episode, it was like names that we would use for our ships. And like, that's fine, except for that my ship had 7 children.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted to tell you, because the names are really good. If nothing, I've started to convince you guys that you should read the books. The fact that they choose really adorable names for their kids should change your mind. Let me tell you about these 7 children.
Okay.
So their first child that dies is Joyce, but they call her Joy. And then their second child is James Matthew, who they call Jem.
Aww.
And then their third child is Walter Cuthbert.
Aww.
And then they have twins, Anne and Diana, and it's so cute because they named the redheaded kid Diana and the dark-haired kid Anne.
Oh, that's
Aw,
perfect.
And they
that's awesome.
You thought that was perfect. It gets better. They have nicknames. And their nicknames are Nan and Di, and it's so cute.
Oh my goodness.
I
so
love
cute.
the nickname Nan. And then they have another boy named Shirley. And then they have their youngest daughter is Bertha Marilla, and they call her Rilla.
Aww.
And they're all pretty much perfect names. They all have like meaning. Because, Joyce is just perfect, but I don't remember where it came from. And then, like, James is someone that they knew, and they called him Jem, so like, that's perfect. And then Matthew is after Matthew, who adopted Anne. And then Walter is Anne's father. And Cuthbert is Matthew and Marilla's last name. So, like, Walter Cuthbert is so cute. And then, obviously, Anne and Diana are, like, Anne and her best friend Diana. And then Shirley is Anne's last name. And then I don't know where Bertha comes from, but then obviously Marilla is named for Anne's like maternal figure, and they're just so perfect. So obviously I couldn't think of more perfect names, and like seven names is a lot for them to already have. So I did not come up with any additional names for them, but I would just like to pick out a few for myself for my hypothetical future offspring.
Okay.
I've always loved Anne, and I love old-timey names, so I love Walter and Gilbert and Marilla. I think those are all definitely on my list.
Yeah, my grandpa's name was Walter. That is a really
Walter's
nice name.
so cute.
It has a lot of meaning to me for sure.
Walter Cuthbert is like so perfect too.
So cute.
So cute.
I also really like Shirley. Shirley's cute. I mean, I don't think Shirley would be a name you expect to give a boy these days, but like at the time, I imagine that was more in fashion.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I totally forgot that that's what we did last time. So I just kind of picked a couple names from like the Hunger Games series that I really love, which honestly, one of them
we
probably...
don't do the same thing every time, so...
Yeah. Yeah, one of them probably is one of the names that they probably named their girl, but also I remember at the time like brainstorming names for their kids that I thought that would be good, but I cannot remember what they are.
I will jump in after you give the ones you've picked out with the most common ones in fan fiction, because like I said, I'm the go-to fan fiction person.
Yes.
On the pod, and I definitely have read my fair share of Hunger Games fan fiction.
So generally from the series, the 2 names that I love and would totally name my kids is Primrose, which is obviously Katniss's sister, and then Rory. Rory is one that I love for a girl or a boy.
That's
totally
cute.
gender neutral, and that is Gale's little brother.
That's cute. I was like, I don't know whose name that belongs to, but that's really cute. I like the name Rory too.
Me too.
Not to shout out another podcast in this episode, but I mean, but Potterless, Mike's niece, who's like one of his Patreon fans, she's like little. She's like 3 or 4 or something like that. But her name's Aurora, and they call her Rory.
Oh my gosh,
so
that
cute.
is so cute.
So
oh my
cute.
gosh, I love that.
And it's just obvious how much he loves her because he talks about her all the time.
That is so
But
cute.
I love the name
that.
Rory. Yeah, that's really cute. I didn't know who that name belonged to in the Hunger Games series, but I'm like, yep, I would take that too.
Okay, so what did you? I'm sure I know it's in my brain buried, but remind me, what were the main like fanfic?
Primrose is very, very common.
Probably Rue
girl,
too.
and then I'd say like the most, and then Rue is the other. Like Prim and Rue are the two most common girls' names, and then hands down most common boy's name in fanfiction is Cinna for their boy. Yeah, because that was a hard death. That makes a lot of sense. Everyone pretty much agrees across the board that they would name their kids after other people that have died, and like those three are like the three like big like really horrible deaths. I mean, Finnick's probably up there too for boys also, but like
Moira,
I feel like Annie and
books.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay,
but
she'll forget. It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like those are like the four like big ones in fan fiction that
makes
I
sense.
see for them, and like they make sense. They're pretty common sense. But
what about you, Moira? Did you have any baby names?
We debated this a lot because they just had a baby, and Heartland wants to run contests in the off season. Like they'll have the baby in the last episode, and then they'll run a contest during the off season to name the baby.
Which is so cute.
And you don't have to have one either. Just just an option if you do.
Like for them having another baby, I don't know what I'd want them to name it, but I want them to have a boy because
a boy's name would be hard.
Yeah, I'm like, I need them to have a boy.
There's a lot of girls so far.
There's a lot of young girls.
Yeah.
And I want to see them try and raise a boy.
Yeah. What if it was like something like horse related, like Gallop or something? That'd be kind of cute.
Yeah, that would be cute. I don't know if Amy would be on board with that.
No, I don't know about that either. But in that field of like horse names, I think that'd be pretty cool.
I could see, I mean, it just depends. I mean, I could see Amy and Ty definitely naming their kid after like Caleb. I don't know why or when they got so close with Caleb, but they just always have been. And like, I don't know. For some reason, Victor came to mind after Victor Whitetail for a boy.
True.
I don't know if that's still relevant enough for them to do anything with it now,
but it's a possibility.
And then, I mean, obviously, like Jack and Tim and everything are like up there.
Yeah, I know. I have a feeling if they did, it would be Jackson.
Jack, something Jack.
Yeah, something
as a middle name or something. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, something close to Jack or like something. Like longer than Jack, but Jack is a nickname or something. Or
And then I know that Samantha and Louise were both on my list. I pretty much called that the baby was going to be named Lindy. Lindy was always my first choice, which is the name of their baby.
That name.
I was like, we knew that the middle name was going to be Marion, but we didn't know the first name. And like, Lindy was always my first choice for like Lindy Marion. But I think like Samantha or Louise, which are Lou's first and middle names, were high on my list there too.
Very true. For myself, I would probably, for a boy's name, I do like the name Ty. Which is weird because I don't like any of the names that come from Ty, like extended. I just like the name Ty. No.
But like that's what Ty's is too. Is it just Ty, right?
Yeah. I think so,
like,
as far as we know. We've never known anything.
I feel like he's been called Tyler before and people have corrected him.
Yeah. Ty is very cute.
Ty's
cute. I like that.
Okay. So that is our episode for this week.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. We had some good chats.
We really did. So you've been listening to the Series of Opinions podcast. Let us know what you think about this week's episode and leave us a review that helps us figure out what we're going to do next and get in contact with us on social media. Our email is seriesofopinionspod@gmail.com, and we are Series of Opinions Pod on Tumblr and Instagram, and Series of Opinion on Twitter. If you want to find me specifically, you can find me on Moira_Frisk on everything.
If you want to talk to me about the Hunger Games at all, I am at Miss Faith Ann across everything, and at Faith Ann Art for all of my art things.
And you can find me at Life Messes of KJ on everything, and I'll talk to you about any of these, but especially Anne and Gilbert related things. So just find me there and let me know. Let me know if I need to convince these two to like feed through so that we can do more Anne content. Let me know if you have connections to get Anne back on CBC and or Netflix.
Yes.
Or do another episode that's just about Hunger Games, because apparently we all have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. Moira, before we go and sign off entirely, do you want to tell people what we're doing next week?
Next week, we are going to be doing a Christmas episode.
Yeah,
Because it'll be
holidays.
Christmas next week.
Yeah.
It'll be Christmas Day next time you're hearing from us. We're excited about that.
Yeah, so get ready for some holiday-centric Christmas vibes next week.
This episode was written, produced, and recorded by us. It was edited by me, editing KJ, and we will be back next week.
Bye!
Bye.